Welcome to our latest episode of Beyond Distribution with GTDC, where we have two guests chatting with Frank. Dominique Deklerck, project leader for the GTDC Sustainability Project, and Manuel Aguirre, who is the Global Sustainability Manager for TD SYNNEX. Manuel and Dominique talk about environmental goals, the sustainability mindset, and the impact regulations have on company policy management and servicing the technology ecosystem. We hope you enjoyed this latest episode, and don't forget to check out our Knowledge Hub at www.gtdc.org. Thanks for listening.
Hello, everybody. This is Frank Vitagliano, and we're doing another episode of Beyond Distribution, our podcast that we've been doing now for a couple of years. I'm thrilled today to have two executives from EMEA to talk to us. First is Manuel Aguirre, who's the Senior Manager for Global Sustainability for TD SYNNEX. And second is Dominique Deklerck, who we call DDK, who is previously a senior executive for distribution in Europe with a number of companies, who now works for GTDC running our sustainability initiative. So good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Frank. Dominique.
Yeah, it's good to have you. The sustainability topic, as everybody knows, and everybody's becoming increasingly aware of, is more and more important, and one that we got engaged with at GTDC a while back. So this is great. We're really looking forward to having some conversation. So Manuel, let me start with you. If you would tell us a bit about yourself, your career, and obviously, most importantly, your role at TD SYNNEX.
Sure. And thank you, Frank and Dominique, for having me here. Let me start by saying that I have always been passionate about the environment, sustainability, probably since my first hikes in nature at the age of 10 with my father. I suppose I understood that we're extremely lucky to be born here, surrounded by so much beauty, right? But we also have the responsibility to take care of our common house, the planet. So this is how sustainability became my purpose and has guided my career ever since. And it brought me to TD SYNNEX 2.5 years ago as a member of the corporate ESG team, where, in short, I contribute to our global program and initiatives. And then I have two areas of focus, being Europe and the circular economy.
Yeah, well, Manuel, that you're not the only one that has this passion and has this,
I know,
feels like this, because it is
I know.
really, particularly in Europe, where, it's really started, in terms of, the regulations that the EU's putting in, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it really is a topic that is important to all of us, and it's really critical that we think about it. To that end, as I mentioned, GTDC about probably 2 years ago, really at the request of the European leadership team that are GTDC members, asked us to get engaged in this initiative. And we started it, and we did. One of the most significant things we did about it, almost not quite a year ago, but at the beginning of 2024, is we hired Dominique Deklerck to come and help us with this initiative. So, Dominique, if you would tell us a little bit about maybe yourself also, just to give us a perspective, because you certainly know distribution, but also your experience so far leading the project and what you've learned and kind of what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Yeah, just to tell a little bit about myself. So as you said, I joined GTDC back in January, after having spent plus 30 years in IT distribution, of which the last 5 years at TD SYNNEX, and that's where I got to know Manuel. And already at TD SYNNEX, I was a bit involved in the ESG initiative there, where we took some leadership already a couple of years ago to think about sustainability there. So I moved from TD SYNNEX from, having run operational organizations into a role now that is actually focused on sustainability. And it feels like you're part of a movement where you want to, improve the world, okay, create a better place for us. And you really feel that when you are in this role. You meet through this project, and certainly since January, I've met so many people that are so enthusiastic and passionate about the environment. Okay, that your own passion that I had a bit, okay, has only grown over that time. Okay, and so with this is a great project. Personally, very enriching for myself. And it's great to be part of a team and to be able to work with people that are so much more passionate about the subject, but inspire me to do so much more.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's and we're certainly glad to have you, because it became very clear to us when Peter and I started the project a couple of years ago. It became very clear to us quickly that that one, there was a lot of passion around it, but two, there was also a lot of complexity around it, and there was also a lot of work that needed to get done to get everybody together. And so when we first started the project, our initial goals were really just collaboration among the GTDC members, right? That was the first thing we really wanted to do. And then over time, we would pull in the rest of the ecosystem, the vendor community, the solution provider community, and then also others who, I know we'll talk about this in a little bit, who are also engaged in various areas. But quickly, it became apparent that one of the distributors that was most engaged and most involved, clearly, Manuel, was TD SYNNEX. And it became very clear that, you guys had a passion for this. Tell us a little bit about what your goals are and what specific goals, TD SYNNEX has put in place for DEI in general, but also, most of the sustainability area.
Sure, Frank. So our environmental goals include carbon reduction targets, basically three: carbon reduction, embedding circular economy principles into our product life cycle, and third, further deploying ISO 14001 management standards. And if I may expand a little bit on the carbon piece, because we have been one of the first distributors to get our carbon targets validated by SBTi, which stands for the Science-Based Targets Initiative, including both our net CO target of 2045 and our near-term targets, such as reducing our scope 1 and 2 combined emissions by 42% in 2030. So here we have implemented a robust ESG software that we use to collect the data, calculate emissions, and then report to stakeholders. And in fact, in a recent fiscal year 23 corporate citizenship report that we just published recently, we share the great news that last year, 2023, we reduced our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 30%, which has been great. And that was mostly due to us transitioning to renewable energies.
Wow, that's great. That's really good. It's pretty clear based on what you just went through that you're tracking these things.
Definitely. There's no other way.
Yeah, that's great. That's good because there's and we'll talk a little bit about this relative to a lot of the regulations that the EU is pushing, but there was a fear from a lot of folks that this is just an exercise, and the truth of the matter is, if you're doing it properly, it isn't, and people are tracking it and they're doing the things that need to be done. So that's great. Dominique, at our last GTDC summit in June, where we had, I think you had just about a full day session on this topic. One of the things that we talked a lot about was creating alliances and building a community, and also getting engaged in the community that already exists, because there's one out there. To what extent is the collaboration important for us? And could you talk a little bit about, what we're doing to get into the community, and maybe even give an example or two of some folks that are that we've become engaged with, that now that we're really focused on this.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, Frank, at the summit back in June in Noordwijk, okay, I said that I wanted to broaden the scope of GTDC's role into in sustainability, and go a little bit beyond just managing this ESG database project. And so, first of all, we have a forum within the distributor community with some resellers that is already very active, okay, where we're sharing information, where we're meeting regularly, where we see each other at events. And it's so important that we collaborate on this, and that we stay informed, and that we inform each other on everything that's happening, because we're at the beginning of something here, okay, where there's a lot to discover. And I think as GTDC, okay, we're very well, being a trade association, we're very well placed to bring people together and create a forum and create alliances, okay. And so I've had the opportunity to meet new actors, for me at least, in that world, in this ecosystem of sustainability, okay. We have now talks with an organization like EPEAT, a very renowned worldwide organization, putting an eco label on a product, okay, which more and more companies are actively using that eco label, okay. And so we want to get closer to them, because that's what our customers are asking, okay. They want to understand what kind of products they're buying. They want to know, they want to buy the products that are having that are good for the environment, okay. So we need to provide them that information. We have other alliances created with companies providing PCF data, which is extremely important these days. So yes, we're creating those alliances. We're meeting many new actors in the ecosystem, and collaboration is you asked me the question, to what extent is it important? It is extremely important, collaboration, okay. It's necessary and it's efficient, okay. If you collaborate, it's so obvious, but you can do so much more by collaborating. And certainly in the area of sustainability, collaboration is key. There is a Baker McKenzie report that was issued a couple of years ago. It actually was end of 2022. That had the headline of breaking sustainability barriers through collaboration. Okay, and it says that it can break down those sustainability barriers and drive systemic change in two significant ways. First of all, it accelerates progress when you collaborate. You can put more power, you can put more weight in the discussion, convince your suppliers to collaborate with you when you are more asking for that information. And it also spreads the burden of innovation that we all need to address the environmental challenges that we are all facing. So yeah, collaboration is extremely important. There's so many examples. If I just make comment, okay, today, for instance, okay, we are, give an example, 10 distributors asking to 5 different suppliers the same information that is needed for the CSRD requirements, okay? There is a better way we can do. We can probably, just work together as an organization, for instance, as GTDC, ask once the question to the 5 suppliers, okay, and then share that information, because today we're duplicating still a lot of efforts.
Yeah, no, that's true. Then, and you know what's interesting is when we talk about this, the role that distribution plays here is absolutely critical, because one of the things that I've talked about a lot, and you know, I've spoken about it. You guys have we've discussed it. Is distribution plays an orchestration role,
Yeah.
and that orchestration role upstream to the vendor community and downstream to the solution provider community enables us, you know, as distributors, and certainly GTDC is part of that, to have a linkage into the whole ecosystem, and therefore the collaboration is a little bit easier to get done and works. And so I think it makes a ton of sense. One of the things you mentioned quickly when you were just talking is you mentioned the ESG database. And I wanted to get Manuel's opinion on that, because early on when we started this, one of the things that we were encouraged to do by the European leadership of GTDC, which by the way consists of all the CEOs and presidents of our members in Europe, of which, you know, there's 15, was to collaborate with Context, who is our database partner in Europe, and build out a database of products with all of the relevant information. And so we've done that, and we've started obviously with you know, with the PCs and laptops and endpoint devices, if you will. And we'll expand over that time. But Manuel, I know you're very familiar with it. What's your take on, one, where we are with it, where we need to go, and its value?
Sure. Well, first, Frank, let me congratulate GTDC on this project, since I believe you have shown great leadership in sitting the main IT distributors and vendors, not just distributors, but also vendors at the same table, and advancing on product sustainability attributes. To us, TD SYNNEX, this database is of you know, a key importance. But basically for two reasons. On the one hand, we want to be seen as a thought leader in sustainability, and this includes helping our partners make sustainability informed procurement decisions. And for this to happen, we need to collect sustainability product attributes from OEMs and we as distributors convey these to our customers, what you were just explaining. Then on the other hand, we are a customer-centric organization, and we always seek to meet our partners' needs. And the truth is, an increasing number of customers, you were speaking of the CSRD just a minute ago, an increasing number of customers is reaching out to us demanding carbon data for their reporting purposes, which is increasing significantly. Some people have spoken of a regulatory tsunami in the past couple of years around ESG, and we are actually seeing our customers reaching out to us, demanding data, because data has come to the center of the stage at this moment.
Yeah, that's good. And yeah, and we kind of anticipated that, which is one of the reasons, you know, we're continuing to encourage as many of the vendors to, you know, participate as we can, because we can certainly go and scrape the internet and, you know, pull data, but the truth of the matter is, the more vendors we get included in the initiative, and we've made some very good progress, right, with Dell and Lenovo and a few others. But the more vendors we get engaged in the project, the more effective you know, we'll become. Because you're right, the solution provider community for sure are being asked by their customers for this information. So, you know, to Dominique's point earlier, if everybody's running around doing the same thing, and we don't figure out a way to, you know, sort of streamline it, we're not doing our job, right? So that's good. Dominique, one of the things that we think about when we look at this is just sort of the ESG mindset in terms of that's in the channel. and what, what's existed and probably what was and kind of what's in place now. So you mentioned, previously as a senior executive, this was an area that was kind of on your radar screen. But as time has gone on, do you think the channel leaders have kind of adopted, more of a mindset where they're thinking about this on a regular basis? Or is it still an exercise of, well, you mentioned a tsunami of paperwork. I've got paperwork I've got to fill out. So let me go worry about it for that reason. What is your take on that? Actually, both Dominique and then Manuel, I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, this is a good question. Now, Frank, in the role that I have today with GTDC, obviously I primarily interact with individuals that have an ESG or or sustainability responsibility within their organizations, and obviously the mindset is there. Okay. So far I had fewer interactions with the commercial teams, but I've had some. And definitely what you see is there is a growing awareness within the commercial teams, within channel leaders, within business leaders on sustainability, the importance of about circularity, for instance. Those are the words that you find back now in their conversations when they talk business. Okay. And so yes, I think there's the mindset is there is more sustainability mindset, I would say. But at the other hand, I think we're just at the beginning, and from talking, okay, we need to go and walk the talk now, and I think there's still a lot to be done. Okay. There's no escaping. There's no escape to the topic of sustainability anymore. Okay, as mentioned, the surge in regulation, okay, forces people to talk about to take care of sustainability topics. And then beyond that, or it's not only regulation; it's also more and more around us are worried about where this planet is going. Okay, so they will ask you what your company is doing about sustainability, and so you have to answer those questions, so you better are prepared for it. So there is no escaping to it for me. It's and I think there's a growing mindset now. Personally, I'm going to give recently I went through, and I'm talking about the not only IT distribution, but the whole the global industry we're in. Okay. And how are we thinking about sustainability? Yes, all large corporations these days, they have an ESG plan or a sustainability plan. They have set out goals. They report on it through their annual ESG reports. But the roadmap is not always very clear where to go. The tracking is getting better. But look at earnings calls, for instance. How much do we talk about ESG and sustainability in an earnings call, for instance? I mean, honestly, almost not. Okay. And I would say the day that the analysts on an earnings call are going to ask questions about how a company is doing on DEI or carbon reduction emissions, I think the day we start to have those conversations in those meetings, I think we will have the right mindset.
Yeah. Well, Manuel, obviously, as we mentioned, TD SYNNEX is certainly from the top down, because I know when Rich was in place, this was a conversation he and I had. He was very engaged, and certainly now with Patrick, coming in, he was part of the team 2 years ago in Europe that encouraged us to get started on this. So I know. So there is a very large company that's very focused on it, and I think that's positive.
Sure. No, definitely. I think sustainability is becoming increasingly a competitive driver, and that we are seeing more and more integration into the business, but also with other function, and that's great. We are seeing more and more CEOs talking about sustainability, and in investor meetings, sustainability related questions being asked. We are seeing more sustainability being discussed in sales meetings with with partners, and sustainability product features being shared and explained in these conversations. So all that is great. Now, maybe you would ask, and you would say, well, where would you like to go, or where would you like us to be now? And some people would be more ambitious, but I tend to be the glass half full, and we are seeing progress, and that's positive, that we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
And
I think that's right.
Sure. Sorry.
That's right. And I also think we're doing it at the pace that we need to. Though I'll tell you something interesting that I heard about a year ago. I attended an IDC event, and they had all their speakers in a variety of different topics. And one of the gentlemen that spoke was the head of their sustainability initiative for IDC. And one of the things that he said, which I thought was very interesting, he said that what they have found out through their surveys is that young folks, I don't know whether it's Gen X or younger than us, young folks, thinking about joining a company, 30 to 40% of them, it mattered as to that company's stance and involvement in one, DEI initiatives, but also sustainability as part of DEI. And I thought that was really interesting because at the end of the day, there are folks, young people that are equally concerned with what's happening, and they're taking it to the next level, and they are sort of to the extent possible interviewing companies as to what are you doing in this space. And I thought that was a very interesting statistic, and one that over time is going to be more and more important, right? And I'm sure you see it, Manuel, today in TD SYNNEX, right?
Yes, and that's great. That they are pushing us to do the right thing in the right direction. That's great.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah, it really is. So okay, so kind of wrapping up here, what I wanted to do was just talk about a little bit about two things. As we see this evolving, and as we see continued interest, what Manuel would you want the folks in our ecosystem to do more of? In other words, what would your message be to certainly one, the vendor community, which is our upstream community, and two, your customers, the solution providers? What would you like to see more of, and what would your recommendations be?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question, Frank. I'm afraid here I'm going to repeat some of what Dominique said earlier on collaboration, right? Because at the end of the day, sustainability is about systems thinking, collaboration, engagement. I like this term competition, which suggests that there is a space for competition, but also for cooperation. And the thing is that the challenges we face, climate change, poverty, you name it, are so huge that this is not something we can solve on our own. So I would invite all other members, not just distributors, but the extended community, vendors and partners, resellers, aggregators, etc., to join the conversation and explore ways we can tackle sustainability challenges together. If I were to put it short, that would be my message to them.
Yeah, that's great. And that's very well said. And you're absolutely right. And frankly, I think, we're trying to do that. And you're trying to do that, every day in your role. Just the fact that your company has put you in a job like this, where your complete focus is in this area, matters. And we're trying to do the same thing at GTDC with bringing Dominique on. So Well, look, gentlemen, this was really an excellent discussion. I appreciate your time, and really look forward to continuing the work that we're doing here. So, thank you very much, and we'll see each other again soon.